Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy, along with Andrew Santangelo. Connor Gray will join us shortly. We have, well, a lot more than I thought we would have to talk about. If you would have asked me a few hours ago, I'd probably said, this will be a nice day. We'll recap the NFL, we'll recap college football. We got a little bit more to talk about, but we'll get into it in a little bit once we have all three of us here. But starting with the question we always start with, the most important question of the day, you could say. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Very odd week here on campus. No home Northwestern athletic events, so very, very strange there. But I'm doing pretty good. Ready to dive into some of this. Hope you're doing well.
I am doing well. We have a wild time here as I just realized that darn ESPN is going to be crazy here for a moment as we get our OBS set up, because every once in a while our computer doesn't like to work, as you know, on this show. But we can get started going right into it with the MLB standings, starting with the American League. The Yankees, man, they just keep holding on. They just keep holding on for that 5.5 game lead they have. They're turning it around a little bit. It was a big lead. It got close. Now we're back to here. But a 5.5 game lead nonetheless over Toronto, and the Blue Jays just keeping it going there. The Rays are a game behind them. It's getting to just more and more of a tough race than the AL East.
Without question, Yankees doing what they have to do. That's the benefit when you get out to a hot start. Is you got games to play with, basically. Obviously, they've been a little banged up. They get one guy back today in Bader. Then they lose Montas, though, on the 15-day DL. So or the IL now, so they just can't kind of seem to stay healthy at this point. Obviously, Aaron Judge should be MVP this season, has carried the team to this point, and we'll see how they go. But, no, Yankees doing what they can to survive, and that's all they have to do when you get a big lead.
And those of you in the chat, we have not done the Bedlam conversation yet. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the show once all three of us are here. We're going to kind of keep that under wraps for now. This is going to be a fun subject to talk about, being, having people on both sides of the argument there. But getting back into it, looking at the AL Central, the Guardians currently in first place. A 4-game lead over the White Sox, and the Twins 3 games behind Chicago there. So everyone fighting it out. If you're the Twins, it's looking pretty rough. Of course, ESPN's playoff predictor, only a 0.4% chance that the Twins even make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, the Guardians basically knocked out the Twins with their big series this past week, and Guardians took advantage and did what they had to do to win. Basically, not mathematically, but basically eliminating the Twins there from the AL Central race and really putting the Guardians in the driver's seat. White Sox obviously still have a shot, but they got a lot of room to climb there with not many games left to go there. I think 15 games left.
And I know we always have joked about it throughout the season, but we finally have a contender. The White Sox, with that perfect 0-run differential, they've done it, folks. 76-71 record and a perfect 0. We've talked about, maybe someone will get close enough. Texas was at -4 for a long time. We finally got someone to hit that 0. Now they just need to hold on to it.
We need like a neutral color. Obviously, green means positive, red's negative. We need 0 is nothing. We can't have red up there.
Yeah, I don't know why we have a red 0. That's not a negative. You're not losing games. I mean, come on, ESPN. What are you guys doing? But then the Houston Astros in the AL West, they have clinched a playoff spot. They have wrapped everything up there. If you look at it down here, they have that magical X by their name that you want to see. They have clinched the division. There's no one else that is going to get in the Astros' way. They have made the playoffs, and that is a huge ticket to punch for them, as you would expect the Astros to do, though, this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going to be there every year, just like the Dodgers. They're the teams you can almost just circle as locks coming into the year. Obviously, it's a shame Seattle's having a very good year, just obviously way not as good as Houston, but Houston's going to be back. They'll be the 1 seed out there in the American League, and we'll see what's able to happen there.
Yeah, we will have to see. Seattle, of course, an 81-65 record. They have a 99.5% chance. They're almost a lock for the playoffs at this point. I don't want to jinx, though. It is Seattle sports, and depending on which team you are, that can have a very positive or negative connotation. Looking at the National League, though, it's a one-game race between the Mets and the Braves. Each team with 55 losses. The Mets have 94 wins. and the Braves have 92 wins. What a battle this has been between these two teams. Just both of them on big win streaks right now. Both teams just continuing to fight for that top spot there.
Yeah, no question. I'm not going to back away from what I said. I still think Atlanta takes this division. I think one thing that people forget here is look at Atlanta. They're 92-55. Mets are 94-55. Braves got 2 games in hand. So basically, they control their own destiny because if they take advantage of those games, you're now evened up and tied for that first spot at 94-55, both teams. So I'm going to lean Atlanta here still. I'm not backing away from that. I get it. Obviously, we got 15, 16, depending on which team you are, games left, but one game's obviously not that much there. So I'm sticking with Atlanta. I think they've obviously went on a run to win the World Series last year. I think they got another run in them.
I mean, I agree. I think the Braves are going to do what they're going to do. It's hard to knock a defending champion out.
Definitely.
They have the experience. They have everything. And, I mean, I say this for all intents and purposes. It's the Mets. Something always happens to the Mets. Even when they're good, it's the Mets. Something might happen to them. That's just that magic or bad luck they have depending on the year. Now, if they were worse, who knows? Maybe they'd make a run. That's when it always seems the Mets are at their most dangerous.
No, yeah, without question. Mets, they luckily clinched the playoff berth last night, but not the division yet. And that's where it's going to come down to and we'll laugh about another September collapse.
More than likely.
Well, because I'll tell you what, I know I'm jumping here, but the wild card, Padres passed the Phillies. Padres, I know Mets obviously had the Phillies number we talked about before, but the Padres won't be a joke. I mean, they'll be able to go. They got guys like Jacob deGrom. I mean, yeah, the pitching's not Jacob deGrom level, but they still got aces on their squad. First 2 games there, and obviously they make the Juan Soto trade, so they got bats as well. And Padres won't be a joke there. They'll give the Mets a run for the money if the standings hold where they are.
They absolutely will. It will be fun to see. And then looking at the NL Central, the St. Louis Cardinals with an 8.5 game lead over Milwaukee. Both teams playing about dead even right now. Both have won 6 of their last 10. And if you're the Cardinals, you'll absolutely take that. With that 8.5 game lead, you got a big series at the Padres, then a giant series with the Dodgers. Those are going to be some big games on this road trip here for the Cardinals if they want to keep that lead.
They'll keep the lead. I'll say this. When we're on the show next week, via Monday or Tuesday, we'll be talking about the Cardinals have clinched in a playoff berth. The division.
I sure hope so. Because I think I saw last night the magic number 7 for St. Louis, which, I mean, hey, if they could just take 2 out of 3 from the Padres, take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, I will be way more than happy.
It won't even be that. They'll take 2 out of 3 against San Diego. Brewers will drop games to the Mets this week, and you'll be just fine. By next week, we'll be talking about Cardinals clinching that division.
All righty. Well, I sure hope so. And then looking at the NL West, the Dodgers have already clinched the division. And you're going to do that when you have a 22-game lead over the next closest team. They have absolutely buried everybody. They've won 9 of their last 10. They have 103 wins, the best record in baseball right now, which makes sense for the best team in baseball.
Oh, no, they've already clinched the 1 seed. I mean, that's
they've
unbelievable in itself.
Up.
I can see, sometimes you get a team get hot and they clinch the division by now, but it's rare you see somebody clinch the number 1 seed at this point, still with 15 games left.
It is crazy to see, but hey, when you're winning 70% of your games, chances are you're going to be pretty good. Just facts, I guess is the best way to put it. But looking at the wild card, the Blue Jays have that 1.5 game lead for the first spot in the wild card. That would give them the 4 seed as of right now. The Rays are 1 game behind Toronto, but half a game above Seattle. So that would put Tampa Bay at 5 and Seattle at 6. So that would be probably the most favorable matchup, I would say, though, if you're the Mariners. I would think you'd want the Guardians out of that.
Yeah, I mean, any of these teams rather the Guardians than facing the Houston or facing each other there. So it's gonna be interesting. The only thing though is the winner of the Mariners Guardians would probably get the Astros. So do you want to pick your poison where you want first round, or do you want to say, okay, give me the tougher opponent there, but maybe a lesser? But here's the thing. Yeah. I mean, the Yankees aren't going to be any joke either. I mean, you're still going to have to go against Aaron Judge and company. So I know. That's the fun part about playoffs. Yeah. You always joke about picking who you want and matchups and everything, but in the end, I mean, the Astros and Yankees, Astros are going to say it's better than the Yankees, but there's still nothing to give up on.
Yeah, I think if you're the Mariners, too, going up against the divisional opponent, we've seen these guys, 19 times now at this point. We know who they are. We know who we are. Let's get at it. I think that'd be a fun series to see. And then looking at it, the Baltimore Orioles, man, I was really hoping they'd get in.
We all were.
We all were. They're, not America's team that kind of goes to the Mariners, but they're the dynamic duo, I guess I could say, of the American League. The underdogs that everyone loves to see succeed. But they are 5 games out currently, and it looks less and less like they'll make it every single day. But if you're the Orioles, this is still an amazing ride they've had.
Oh, yeah, they made the season fun up until September. Nobody expected that. I mean, everyone thought they'd be the first team, if not the second team, eliminated from the playoffs. And here they are. They're going to be the last American League team eliminated from the playoffs, then between them and the White Sox. So, no, it was a fun ride, and they got a lot to be excited for here in the near future because they're only going to get better.
They absolutely will. Looking at the National League, the Braves have a commanding 11.5 game lead for that first spot there, which would be the number 4 seed. And I mean that's gonna be a tough situation because if you're the Mets or the Braves, whoever loses is probably gonna be a 95+ win team sitting in that 4th spot there. That's not gonna be a fun matchup for whoever they draw.
No, not at all. I mean, and again, we're sitting here picking and choosing again. But here's the thing. I mean, yeah, you obviously gonna sit here and say maybe the Braves and Mets are better, but the Cardinals are nothing to go home about. I mean, they got 2 arguably MVP candidates in the National League this year, in Arenado and Goldschmidt. So I mean, yeah, you fall to the 3rd wild card. Yeah, I'd rather probably face the Cardinals than the Braves or the Mets. But again, it's not a team that it's not gonna be a team that you're gonna just say, okay, yeah, we can face them. But and to your point about in the American League about facing divisional opponents, you could say the same thing. Would you rather face a division team because you're more familiar with them? So maybe if you are the Phillies, would you rather face the Braves or Mets just because you're more familiar with those guys and you know what maybe you have to change and get ready for? Or, I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, the Padres, they haven't really faced either one. So it's like, what team would you rather? But I do think the way the National League is in terms of the teams and the American League, that's going to be your playoff teams. It's going to be more about seeding and whatnot comes on that side.
And then, obviously, the Padres, like you mentioned earlier, have passed the Phillies for that 5 spot there. And the Brewers are 2.5 games behind Philadelphia. So it is going to be an absolute race to see here at the end, unlike the American League that kind of feels more decided, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I will say this because, I mean, sometimes I forget myself, but even when I'm talking to people is there's no game 163 like usual in baseball. So really the Phillies won the tiebreaker. So really the Phillies have a 3.5 game lead because the Brewers have to be 1 game better than the Phillies. I don't know which way it goes for the Padres Brewers, but just as a Phillies fan, I know that obviously with this coming down to the stretch. So that is the nice part is the Phillies have the tiebreaker. Again, not sure who has the tiebreaker between San Diego and Milwaukee, but the Phillies, that is the nice part is they gain an extra game in that sense.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, it's always fun once we get down the stretch here. We get a lot to talk about going baseball-wise. It's just hard to think it's already almost October. We're, 2 weeks away now at this point?
I think, a month from now, the wild card series will be over, I believe. I think we'll already be talking about divisionals. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think the wild card's like the 8th or something like that.
And they planned it on a Friday, so it's just Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no off days, best of 3. Yeah. Just rolling them right out there.
Yeah, that'll be fun to see how that works TV-wise, trying to pit that all with, if you have a Sunday wild card, we got NFL today, how are we going to spread this out and make it work? Because, boy, that will be some TV battles for sure.
Well, maybe you remember, but I was actually talking to some of my family last night when we were watching the Eagles game on Monday night because now Joe Buck and Troy are there. So I forgot that Buck went to ESPN. So I'm interested to see when it comes to the World Series, who gets the World Series this year without Joe Buck?
Yeah, I believe it's Joe Davis that gets it, if I remember correctly. They kind of had him as the number 2. He did Dodgers games as well. They'll just slide him right into that role. But it'll be weird having the World Series without Joe Buck. But I suppose I can't delay it any further because we were going to wait till Connor got here, but it is 6:05. He might have gotten sidetracked with other things. We could
start with some recaps if you wanted to.
We can do some recaps of the NFL. We could actually, I would say it, but as you can see here probably, audience, by my amazing amount of tabs of games, I do not remember where anything is. Okay, there we go. We can do the AP poll real quick before we get to it. So this is kind of hectic. When we try to plan things with certain people here for segments, things get moved around. So I apologize for us being a bit more out of order than usual today. But like
just
I said,
one show.
Yeah, just one show out of 81. We should be good there. But looking at the AP poll, Georgia staying number 1 in the country to the surprise of, absolutely no one except maybe one Alabama fan. I don't know. Alabama staying number 2, Ohio State 3, and you know the rest. Michigan, Clemson, Oklahoma, USC all staying put. Kentucky and Oklahoma State switch spots. Kentucky now up to 8, Oklahoma State down to 9. Arkansas staying at 10, Tennessee moving up to 11 as part of a big series of jumps. NC State moving on up to 12. Utah, the one-spot hop up to 13. Penn State, a huge jump up to 14. That's what happens when you go beat an SEC team at their place. You get a lot of love from the AP poll. Oregon, the giant jump for beating BYU. They're up to 15, and Ole Miss up to 16. Baylor does not move, and Washington comes in at number 18 for their big win. BYU falling to 19, Florida to 20 for their near-loss experience with South Florida. Wake Forest dropping 2 spots for beating Liberty by a point. Texas wins by 21, drops down 1. Texas A&M wins by 8 over Miami. They move up to number 23. Pitt falls to 24, and Miami all the way down to 25, a 12-point fall for their loss. So also, of course, someone pointing out in the chat, I believe this is Tyler, Kansas is robbed. Rank the Jayhawks. Just, you got to put them in. Also, rest in peace to BYU. Also, rank App State. So, he has some comments as well. And so, yes, this is Tyler. Okay, we got Tyler in the chat. So, we have him from a distance today. So, this is good information to hear. But, man, I mean, looking at it, there's a lot that I don't really disagree with. I mean, the top 7 staying the same. Kentucky and OSU switching is a little weird, I guess, but the way I see it, Kentucky has the more quality win with that Florida win. We don't know if it'll be a quality win by the end of the season, though, given how Florida's doing right now. And Anthony Richardson's Heisman hype has fizzled out in the span of just 2 weeks. But for right now, it's a heck of a story with Mark Stoops and what he's been able to do with Kentucky. It is weird seeing them at number 8 in the country, though.
This is basketball?
I don't know. It might. We got an undefeated Kansas and Duke this week.
Right?
We might secretly be in college basketball season.
But no, in all seriousness, I think one of my biggest surprises is I get they didn't look good, but they only lost by 1 possession, 8 points. Is Miami dropping 12 to a ranked team in Texas A&M at Texas A&M. Wasn't like it was a home game for Miami. So I think that was my biggest surprise here, seeing them drop 12 spots. I think that's a bit much for a ranked team and on the road, especially a team like Texas A&M. So that was a bit of a surprise. Obviously, the OSU Kentucky thing is a small surprise, but I think it comes down to Arizona State losing their game. I mean, I think that didn't help OSU, obviously, and I think that's a big thing that caused that to happen. Is OSU, one of OSU's opponents had a bad loss, and it obviously didn't fare well for them. Penn State, I think. They look phenomenal. I didn't expect. I think we both picked them to win, but I didn't expect them to drop 41 on Auburn and win by 29 points. So I think they got that right, having them jump up in that spot. Those are my biggest surprise. And then Washington, I think they got to give them credit. We call that. I think that might be it. Maybe Michigan State. I don't know if they deserve to drop all the way out of the rankings. I mean, I get it. It wasn't a great look, but still, I mean, you would think at 11 you wouldn't find them falling out of the rankings.
The one that gets me, I guess I should say, is you look down here, Washington obviously makes the big jump, so people fall down there. But you get to a team like Pittsburgh, who gets penalized for beating Western Michigan by 21.
Yeah.
That's just a little silly to see. Like, I get we're moving Washington up. But if you're going to penalize a team, Arkansas, when you only beat an FCS team by 11, I know that Missouri State's a good FCS team. Don't get me wrong. Missouri Valley, great FCS conference, amazing teams. But it's not like they went out there and played North Dakota State, and they're sitting here with a 17-0 deficit in the second quarter. They're in a fight for their life getting into the fourth quarter. I don't see how you don't knock Tennessee up into the top 10, especially considering the game they have against Florida this week. Arkansas is a good team. I think they'll bounce back from it. But just as we go from week to week, I feel like you have to punish the Hogs at least a little bit for that game.
I agree. And even if you don't want to move Tennessee because they beat Akron, you could still move NC State. I mean, is Texas Tech great? No, but, I mean, you still beat a Big 12 team. You beat a Power 5 conference, and you could still reward them and move them up in the top 10 as well. So, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I had this a surprise as well, especially when, I mean, I'm going to pull them just because, obviously, We talked about it quickly with the Nova game last week. Army took care of business and beat another good FCS, a top 5 FCS team by over 30 points. And so they took care of business. There's no reason why Arkansas couldn't have taken care of business.
Yeah, I mean, I get that it was the Bobby Petrino Bowl, and there's a lot of things going on there, but also Tyler chiming in. Arkansas got the AP poll SEC benefit of the doubt. There you go.
Yep.
They got them SEC patches, so they got those powers.
But to be fair, Tennessee's another SEC team, so there'd be no problem flipping those two.
There would have been zero problem there if we would have said, okay, Vols are your top 10 team. We believe in you. Don't lose to Florida. If you do, my goodness, we have to move Florida back in the top 15, and no one knows how good they are. But I guess we could just get into some recaps real quick. I guess I'll text Connor here in a minute, so we'll see if we need to just get into that segment or not, because I honestly do not know at this point. But we will keep moving along here. That AP poll is taken care of. We will move into the NFL. Well, we'll move into the NFL first. I had college football up there just to get a quick look at everything. But we've got to start with Thursday night. We'll get to Sunday, though, because, man, there was a lot of interesting things happening on Sunday. But starting with the Thursday night game, Kansas City taking on the Chargers. Absolutely crazy game, as always, with the Chargers and the Chiefs. They always have something fun going on when they get together. Chargers start with a 10-0 lead. They're bouncing right down the field. Kansas City looks lost a little bit, but then Patrick Mahomes and company, they pick up the pace, 10-7. That's the score going into the half. Chargers immediately get back up 17-7 starting the third quarter. And that was all the Chargers would do for a while. Kansas City slowly coming back, getting in it, tying the game up at 17. We mentioned Matt Amendola, just talking about him in pregame a little bit Thursday. He hits a big field goal to tie the game, only 19 yards, but hey, you never want to be that guy. You don't want to play. You don't want to be Walsh here. You don't want to miss the chip shot. And then the real play of the game, Jalen Watson getting a 99-yard pick six, completely changes momentum for the game. Chiefs get a 27-24 win, and then Herbert getting injured late in the game. So, man, this was – I don't mean to say this is classic Chargers, but this is what they do. They play competitive. They just can't find a way to beat Kansas City.
Yeah, I wonder if this game would have been different with Keenan Allen. I think he is that difference maker, especially 3 points, especially when you have a big pick six like that happen. So it'd be interesting to see how this game could have fared in a little different way. But no, Chiefs went out, took care of business. I mean, defense looked good at times, especially in that second half. After that, the early third quarter touchdown. So, no, Chiefs got what they had to do. Story of the weekend, comebacks, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But, I mean, hey, Chiefs don't lose at home, it seems like. And it's just they find ways to win, no matter how ugly or good it looks.
Yeah, unless you're the Bengals, the Chiefs do not lose at home. That's just what they do. But you mentioned comebacks, and, oh, boy, we got quite a few of them to talk about as I start lining all these games up here. We have a whole lot of surprises that happened, I feel like. We had some comebacks. We had some almost comebacks. We had a whole lot of craziness. We have to start, though, with the miracle of all miracles. The New York Jets have won a football game, and they came back from double digits with a minute 55. New York winning over Cleveland 31-30. This got to be one of the craziest endings. I want to say this is the craziest ending I saw this week, but we had 3 other games that were similar to this.
Yeah, I would say this is probably the craziest one because it did take an onside kick and everything to get the job done, and they were able to do it. Credit to the Jets. I mean, everyone will make jokes and stuff about Nick Chubb not going down. He runs it in, gives the Jets the chance. I mean, if he would have just slid, game's over. Yeah, if you want to put blame on Chubb, go for it. If you don't want to put blame on Chubb, I also get that side of it. Remember, he also had three touchdowns in this game, so he definitely wasn't the problem. It was just, if he goes down, all they got to do is need the ball. So it's an interesting kind of argument on which way you go for it in that sense. But credit to the Jets for battling back. And I'll tell you what, that onside kick was phenomenal. Put in a great spot there to give them a chance. And credit to Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I mean, this was absolutely crazy to see what happened there. To me, I mean, the Nick Chubb run, we can talk about that all day. But I feel like we got to talk about the missed PAT as well by Cade York. I mean, you make that PAT, we're talking about a 2-possession game that is 31-31 eventually going into overtime. I don't think the Jets go for 2 in that situation. I mean, At least I don't think they go for 2 there. I don't truly know. It's the Jets. They might take any win they can get. But it will be interesting to see how this impacts both these teams. Because if you're the Browns, you're thinking to yourself, man, we should be 2-0. There's no reason we're not 2-0 right now. But if you're the Jets, hey, we're 1-1 and Joe Flacco's our quarterback. We're able to steal a win on the road, and who knows what's going to happen next week.
You never know. That's why we play every game.
That is indeed why we play the game. I want to welcome Connor onto the show now. Connor, how is everything going with you today?
I had a busy morning, had to interview someone, and basically spent about the last 3 hours, I should say, doing music. So had a percussion sectional and had jazz band.
All right, there you go. Well, I don't know what to do now because we just started NFL recap. I guess we can keep going through this. We'll come back to the subject of the day. But looking at some of these other games here.
Did you guys already talk about it?
We talked about one thing. We just went over that. We've not talked about Bedlam yet.
Okay.
We already talked about the Lions, though, because the Lions they're hype. That's all I need to say. They're hype right now. Dan Campbell seems to be that dude. Lions win a 36-27 game over the Commanders. This is another weird, shaky game. Detroit gets up 22-0 at the half. Washington comes all the way back to almost make it a one-possession game. That's what happens when Joey Sly misses a PAT with 1:56 to go. But if you're the Lions, this is a great win. You won a game. You were favored and you won.
And it's been a while since they've done that. It's at least been about two years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's like, but I'm really actually very happy for the Lions. They got a good win. They are now 1-1. It's your best start in a long while, especially since last year you went a long time without winning a game, but a lot of your games were pretty close. But now you got one, and also just Detroit looks a lot more competent, especially with Campbell as their coach. Been very great for them. He's rallied that team together, and they are starting to believe in themselves. And plus, Jared Goff actually looking good for the most part. I mean, he had 4 TDs.
Yeah, Goff 24, 34, 256 yards, 4 TDs. Wentz was, Carson Wentz. He had some good moments. He had some bad moments. But at the end of the day, 30 for 46, 337, 3 TDs, and a pick.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to Campbell out-prepared Rivera here. They got off to the hot start. And, I mean, again, when you get off to a hot start, you have some breathing room there, and you're able to make a little bit more mistakes. And listen, you got a guy like DeAndre Swift there to kind of seal the game there with his runs. Everything works out just fine. But, no, credit to the Lions. They're out here scoring points early on in the season, 35 last week, 36 this week. Who's next there? What they're going to do next week with their offense? And, I mean, that's credit to them. The defense has a lot of work, giving up 38 and 27, but – no, Lions got their offense is for real though.
It absolutely is. As we move on to our next game here, the Buccaneers taking on the Saints, and this game had everything. It had Jameis Winston throwing 3 interceptions. It had fights. It had every single thing that you could possibly want, and it even had the Buccaneers finally beating the Saints with Tom Brady as their quarterback. He was 0-4 against them. He finally gets that win.
Well, they didn't win because of Tom Brady. Let me say that. Tom Brady looked just as bad as he usually did against the Saints. It took a lot for them. I mean, the defenses went back and forth, and then finally, Brady had the big pass in the fourth quarter, but I think really the defense won this game for Tampa Bay.
Sorry.
Hey, you're good. You're good. But looking here, I mean, Mike Evans obviously getting suspended for a game.
Yep.
That's going to be what we kind of expected. Every time he's with Lattimore, something's going to happen between those two. But, yeah, this was a defensive battle. I mean, the Saints have 5 turnovers and still outgained the Buccaneers by 48 yards. It was just one of those crazy type of games that you seem to get with these two.
It's 3-3 in the fourth quarter, going like early in the fourth quarter, and that's where a lot of things happen. But also just like, Buccaneers finally woke up and did something. But it's weird how they won this game by 10, but it feels like the Saints offensively should have probably made this game even closer. Should have been like a 3-point game, or they should have won. But obviously, those turnovers are going to do you in.
Then Tyler in the chat, roller coaster wins. He's carrying his fantasy team. That's happening. That's what he does.
Hey, he's giving you points.
There you go. That's all you need. But overall, good defensive game here. Buccaneers move to 2-0, and they have not played a home game yet. So, what you have to do.
They'll get. I'm assuming they'll get a home game next week.
I would think so, but
because I know they play the Chiefs in 2 weeks.
Next one, the Panthers play the Giants. This was one of the games of all time is the best way to describe it. I regret watching this game, like 3/4 of it, but you know what? I did. Giants win 19-16. We got to talk about the Giants. They're 2-0. They're winning games. Their defense is playing all right. Saquon Barkley's doing his thing, 21 carries, 72 yards. And Danny Jones is playing well, 22 for 34, 176, and a TD.
I don't know how well Jones is playing.
He's playing well by Giants QB standards of like the past decade.
He's actually 2-0, and I think he's played better. He's played much better games than this, but hey, all that matters is you did enough to win.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I give a lot of credit to the Giants here for their defense and Barkley. I think Barkley and the defense is why they're 2-0. You hold Tennessee to 20, hold the Panthers to 16 here. So 36 points on the season. So already, but to me, I mean, Giants. We'll see what they're able to do. Obviously, Tennessee was impressive. I don't take much away from Carolina. But again, to hold a team with Christian McCaffrey on it to 16 points is pretty impressive in itself. So that's my takeaway here from New York.
Oh, and McCaffrey also had his first 100-yard game in a while.
Yeah,
so.
they actually did give him the ball. So I guess Matt Rule listened to us on our show. He did give Christian McCaffrey more than 5 carries through 3 quarters.
So you give him and Chuba a lot of carries. That'll help Mayfield out.
Yeah. Also, this was a big game for Graham Gano, 4 for 4 field goals. Having a good day. Having a revenge game.
Yeah, not a good day for Oklahoma people, though. Baker struggled. Chuba Hubbard fumbled in a big spot. Didn't get much carries after that, so not good for the Oklahoma guy.
Nope. We got Jalen, who we claim, and Kyler Murray, so we had something going our way quarterback-wise.
And I think Alabama and OU fans claim Jalen.
Yes, we all love Jalen, and now Eagles.
I claim Jalen. That's for sure.
This man has more of a right to claim Jalen than anyone else.
Listen. I yelled about him fumbling the ball more than anyone else did, so I think that gives us a right.
Not really.
But the Patriots playing the Steelers, 17-14 here. Patriots getting the win, and my goodness, this was one of those games where you just looked at it, and football's technically being played, but it was rough to watch at times.
Question: how long until we see Kenny Pickett out there?
I'd give the Steelers a few more games. They do play the Browns this week, I believe, or something along the lines. That's a game coming up. But I don't know. I would give Trubisky at least a few more games. Unless he does something really bad or throws like 4 interceptions in a game or something, I think they'll ride with him as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, I don't think we see Pickett start any games this year. I think they're pretty set on letting him rest and take the year to figure things out that way underneath management and everything. And Trubisky's been in the league for a while, so I mean, I think this is Trubisky's year, and the defense is going to keep them in plenty of games, like they did here. So I think it's Mitch's year.
Not to interfere, but it's like because they have Rudolph as QB3, so wouldn't Pickett come right out?
Yes.
After Trubisky. So if you want Pickett to ride the bench pretty much that whole year, that way you don't have to use him. That way he gets time. You would make him the third string use him as a last resort if you had to, if you don't want him to get hurt.
You could do that, but I think it's more of they're just going to ride with Trubisky.
I know. I get the whole thing. You're going to ride, especially you paid him a lot of money.
Yeah.
For like it's like a 2-year contract or something like that, and it was like even though he's not worth that money, they still paid him that, so you have no choice but to ride him as long as possible. But it's like one of those things if you're not really concerned about wanting to start Kenny Pickett at all this year, if that's the way, like you said, they don't want him to really start at all. You would make him QB3. That way he's riding behind 2 veterans.
You could do that, but
well, you're not anticipating an injury, so I think if Trubisky goes down, then you're gonna go with Kenny over Rudolph because that's the better quarterback. But I think here, unless Trubisky gets hurt, you're not gonna see him. Like no matter how bad Trubisky plays, is what I was.
Yeah, I was like, you paid for him, you're gonna use him. I think is the kind of.
No, I was agreeing with what you were saying. I was agreeing with it. It's just that I was like as you said, well, you don't want Kenny to start at all. I understand you're not going to anticipate an injury, but it's like if you don't because you said you don't want Kenny to really start at all. That's where you need to flip Rudolph and Kenny. That way you don't have to deal with that.
But that's what I'm saying. If he gets hurt, you're going to go with Kenny because he's the better quarterback.
Okay, Kenny still has a lot to prove on that. Still.
I mean, Mason's got a lot to prove too. He's proven nothing in NFL.
Literally
everyone has a lot to prove in this situation. That's what I'm gonna say. I would say
But
also.
but you're already automatically saying Kenny's the better quarterback. I'm like, Kenny still has not played a full game yet, so we'll see about that.
We'll see, but also Trubisky did beat the Bengals.
And I never.
So I mean, we do have the greatest quarterback here. He did beat the defending AFC champion.
That's true.
But moving on here to the next one, ladies and gentlemen, it happened again. The Jags beat the Colts again. They have now beaten the Colts 8 straight times at home. Someone go help Matt Ryan. Someone.
Not just Matt Ryan. Help the Colts.
Someone help everybody
Help the
because
Colts.
that fan base might lose its mind. You're 0-1-1. You tied Houston. You lost to Jacksonville. Everything is going wrong.
Oh.
Matt Ryan throws 3 interceptions.
Best part about that Sunday.
Oh, gosh.
Best part about that Sunday. I had to go to work, but I met my friend John, who's a big Colts fan, because he likes a lot of the Indianapolis teams that are there. I asked him, so how about them Colts? And he just looked at me like, I hate you so much.
Yeah.
It made my day.
It's a bad time to be a Colts fan right now. I don't know what you do if you're Indianapolis this year. You've come out in the worst humanly possible way, besides maybe losing to the Texans.
Not gonna lie, Matt Ryan right now is making Carson Wentz look like he was actually better than the way they treated him.
Yeah,
Wentz is way better than the way they treated him, and he's better than Matt Ryan at this point in Ryan's career.
It's weird. Matt Ryan, despite playing with the Falcons obviously after the Super Bowl, he still put up good numbers. But obviously, you play with the Falcons, so you're not going to be that great in the eyes of a lot of people. But as soon as you get to a better team, all of a sudden he forgets how to play.
I think that's the funniest part about this Colts collapse right here is you blame Wentz the entire offseason, and you come out here and tie a very bad Houston Texans team, and then you get shut out to a very bad Jacksonville team.
When you're making Jacksonville look amazing, there's a problem.
Yep. Yeah, Jacksonville, we've not seen it this dominant of a win since Blake Bortles was their quarterback. That's saying something.
That's 5 years ago.
I know. And then, speaking of madness that happened, we got to talk about, to me, this was the best game of the day. This was the craziest game of the day. I mean, the Jets, I would say, is a pretty good contender there. But the Dolphins come back, and, I mean, if you would look at that fourth quarter score there, 28-3 lull. That's all I could say about that. 42-38, Dolphins beat the Ravens. It was a crazy game. Devin Duvernay getting everything started with a 103-yard kickoff return. It was madness. And that's really all that happened in the first quarter, which is weird to think about considering the score.
Right.
And the Dolphins get down 28-7. They get down 35-14. And Tua Tagovailoa turns on the Jets, and this Dolphins team starts to fly. Tyreek Hill getting a bunch of big plays. And then Jalen Waddle, with 14 seconds left, catches the pass to take the win for the Dolphins. And my goodness, what a game.
It really was. It's like Baltimore just jumps on them, and it's like, I'm thinking that, this game's pretty much Baltimore's going to take over for the rest of the game. And then, my goodness, Miami made adjustments that pretty much Baltimore had no answer for. Their defense shut Lamar Jackson and that offense down, and they finally let their best receivers just go off with Tua actually throwing some really accurate passes. Even though he struggled early, he finished really strong. And you got the W. You're now 2-0. And people are looking at you like hey, you might actually make the playoffs.
Yeah, by the way, I do want to thank everyone who has tuned in live tonight. This is our highest viewership we've had in a long time on this show. If you want to see more of our stuff, can't always make it on time, we completely understand that. You can go to the Guys Who Stare at Stats YouTube channel. You can absolutely do that. Subscribe there, like videos, comment for videos you cannot make. As always, got to throw that little shilling in there. Just, hey, no problem with subscribing to the channel. That's all I could say.
Please.
But the next game we have, the Falcons' curse was almost lifted. It almost happened. It was 28-3 in the third quarter, and the Falcons come all the way back. Marcus Mariota carries the team. They get it to 31-25, and then a safety with 6 seconds left. It's 31-27. The Falcons had a shot, but they could not get the win. 31-27 the final. Rams hold on. But, man, what is happening with the Rams this year? They cannot play a complete game.
You go ahead. I really have no answers for this.
Oh, yeah, I mean, credit to Jalen Ramsey getting the interception at the end to seal the win. I mean, that was big for the Rams. Obviously, spent all the money to go or in the trade to go get Ramsey. That's the big thing here. But it comes down to the Rams' defense. The offense is going to be just fine with Stafford, Robinson, Cooper Kupp. They're going to get their points. It's more about what's this defense really about. And with guys like Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald, you expect a lot more from them. And here they are. They allow the blowout to Buffalo, and then you give up 27 points to Atlanta, almost allow them to come back and win. So if the Rams want to fix things, it's going to have to start on the defensive side.
I will say also, I know Matt overall played a great game on his stats, but those interceptions are that's got to get fixed.
Yeah, it was a brutal game with turnovers. Each team having 3 turnovers. It was a brutal day to watch at times, but that's what happens in the NFL. That's what happens when you got 28-3 magic going on.
Yep.
That's all I can say there. Looking at some of these other games here to get to, we're not going to touch on Seattle-San Francisco as much. The Niners getting a 27-7 win there. Of course, the big story being Trey Lance out for the season. Mm-hmm. So Jimmy Garoppolo is thrown back into the starting role for the 49ers.
And he did what he was supposed to do. He came in through a solid game, whatever he had to play in. There's really not much to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, he did exactly what you want him to do. We're going to talk about the Sunday night game real quick because I don't want to spend too much time on it. The Packers did what the Packers are going to do. They beat the Bears 27-10. Monday night games, Buffalo absolutely obliterates Tennessee 41-7. And Philadelphia getting a 24-7 win over the Vikings. Kirk Cousins could not throw a football for a while. I'm sure as an Eagles fan that made you very happy, Andrew.
Yeah, best receiver for the Vikings was Darius Slay.
There you go.
So, I mean, everything you can hope for. A very odd game, though. 0 points in the second half. That's still a strange thing. He scored 31 total in the first half and then not 1 in the second half.
There you go.
But, no, yeah, credit to Jalen Hurts. He's proven doubters wrong right now, and he's finding the guys he needs to. But the depth of the Eagles is what's going to continue to carry them.
So I don't know if I actually said that, or I know I mentioned this to Cade a couple months back, but there was predictions that Jalen Hurts was going to have a breakout year, and I said, yeah, he's on the track. He was on the track to going up. So I knew this was going to be this is going to easily be his best season.
Yeah, I
think he's going to do really well.
Second year with the team, so I mean it's going to be big for him to continue to progress, and he's got weapons. I mean, Howie Roseman went out and got the guys for him, and now it's on him. So
yeah, I mean he's a natural leader. That's just who he is. Yeah. You could tell, like, the second he came in last year, he won that locker room over. Dude's going to be fun to watch.
The toughness is just incredible, too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the game, but both his rushing touchdowns last night, it looked like he was going to be tackled at the 5-yard line. Then all of a sudden he's spinning and rolling into the end zone. It's like, how did that even happen?
He did that a lot wherever he's been. I mean, it was fun getting to watch it in person. He'd have some of those runs where he'd go right through a pile. You never know where he was. He'd pop out the other end 5 yards later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just who he is. And, I mean, he's going to be special for the Eagles. I really think that.
He was great at Alabama. Obviously got replaced by Tua, but he still was really great. Yeah. And then he went to OU. That one season, despite the criticisms, he
carried a team to a playoff spot. That's what he did.
And your prize was LSU.
And our prize was Joe Burrow. What a prize. But speaking of prizes and Joe Burrow, guys, I have to say it. How about them Cowboys? 20-17, Cooper Rush, undefeated, 2-0 in his entire career. 20-17, folks. The Cowboys did it. I don't know what the Bengals' problem is besides their offensive line is still bad. They did what they had to do turnover-wise. No turnovers for the Bengals, but they still could not get the job done, having to settle for field goals 3 different times. You got the kicking game figured out. You got the turnovers figured out. Still haven't got the winning part figured out, which is weird to see considering, what happened last year.
It's like, didn't the Bengals go out and get offensive line to protect
They did. They fixed,
quote-unquote,
fixed their offensive line, but it is not a good time. Yeah, as Tyler points out, OSU fans having flashbacks to the magic of Cooper Rush. Yeah, that happens.
Wait,
That's what he does. Cooper Rush, he was at Central Michigan. He beat
Oklahoma
State. And now Harry is rooting. He beat one Cowboys team just to lead another. That's what Cooper Rush does.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
so.
But Brett Maher, the 50-yard field goal at the horn to win it. Huge win for Dallas. We all thought they would struggle without Dak, but
No?
Maybe they found their guy. I don't know.
Well, they struggled offense. The defense is a big part of this game for
Yeah.
them, and the defense is legit. The defense is what's going to keep them in games, kind of like the Steelers, and you're going to see if your quarterback can find a way, or even running back out there. Obviously, Elliott, a lot more expectations, so we'll see what they're able to do.
Yeah, but I'm going to keep memeing Cooper Rush being their starter into existence, though. That ain't going to – having a good defense isn't going to stop me from saying, hey, maybe this Cooper Rush guy.
So, them boys back?
Yeah, as of this week, Dallas is back.
Them boys.
We'll see next week about them boys.
Oh, boy.
The next game here, speaking of the other Texas team, Houston hangs around in Denver. I mean, there were so many fun scenes from this game. You had the Denver crowd pretty much counting the play clock down to make sure the Broncos didn't get delay of games. This was, I mean, a lot of booing, a lot of frustration, a lot of everything. It's 9-6 Houston going into the fourth quarter. Broncos were finally able to wake up a little bit and get the job done 16-9, but this does not bode well for Denver. You lose at Seattle. You have a tight game with Houston. Definitely not at all what people thought was going to happen.
I mean,
Broncos.
The amount of money you're spending on a lot of these players, especially some of them are very good, and obviously Russell Wilson's history, he should be. It's like this team should be at least winning by around 20 points over the Texans. It shouldn't be a one possession game at all. But there's just I think there's some internal stuff. Either head coaching or offensive coordinator play calling problems. It's like this game should not have been. Defense did what they're supposed to do, but offense, they shouldn't be struggling, especially you're paying so much money for Russell Wilson.
I mean, the other thing here, Russell Wilson, 14 for 31, 219, a TD and an interception. He did not have his best game by any means.
It's like he never left Seattle.
This is just absolutely – I mean, this has got to be demoralizing for Broncos fans. You had all this hope, and it's already gone 2 weeks into the season. This is not what you want as a Denver fan. Just absolutely, my goodness. This is brutal.
And I'm enjoying it.
It's way too early to hit the panic button. You're bringing a new quarterback. It's going to take time to figure out. The defense is perfectly fine. You give up 17 points last week, only 9 this week. I mean, the defense is still there, and the defense is still legit. It's going to just take a little bit. I mean, we got to remember, preseason is not what it used to be. These guys aren't playing together like they used to in the preseason, so it's going to take time. It's way too early to panic. Denver will be just fine, and I still think they make the playoffs.
You might want to tell that to the fans in Mile High. Boy, the panic button has definitely been hit by
I'm from Philadelphia. I've been there plenty of times.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. But looking at the final game to talk about, we got to talk about the other great comeback of the day. Arizona wills their way to a win over the Raiders. Kyler Murray making some big plays, the defense stepping up, and then Byron Murphy Jr., 59-yard fumble recovery in overtime. Right after we had a fumble get overturned, we thought, oh, my goodness, here come the Cardinals. They're going to win the game. Okay, he was down. We're good. Oh, my goodness, they did it again. And if you're the Raiders, just absolute devastation. You're up 23-7 going into the fourth quarter. This can't happen.
Yeah, a lot of credit to Kyler Murray. I mean, all the talk in the offseason, how he always falls apart at the end of games. He doesn't watch enough film and all that. And he's the opposite, trying to change the narrative. Struggles all first half, and then all of a sudden the second half, he's like, all right, let me turn it around and win this game for him. And then obviously the defense takes care of the rest in overtime.
That fourth quarter really did it for them. Also, I want to say, Raiders fans, you were telling the Chiefs being the Arizona Cardinals was not really much of a victory. We killed them. You lost to them. So what does that make you? You're terrible. You suck.
Well, we'll see what happens. Kyler Murray, he had a quarter to remember. I mean, when you run 83 yards on a play total, he had some magical moments. And I mean, that's what I expect Kyler Murray to do. Does he always do it? Of course not. You're going up against some of the best defenses in the world. But that's the Arizona team I expect them to be.
Sorry there was no analyst for me. I was just enjoying the misery of the Raiders because they talked so much crap about.
Well, I mean, that's just divisional rivalries
The thing is, you had Raiders fans that were literally saying us beating the Kansas City Chiefs, beating the Raiders was not really much of anything. It wasn't really an impressive victory at all. And then they proceed to choke a lead up by 23, proceed to choke that and pretty much we went and they lose in overtime when they had chances to win that game and to put it away. Instead, they didn't. And it says more about that team than it does about the Cardinals. Cardinals are actually a solid team.
Yeah, I mean, you know how this works, though. No, the Raiders are 0-2, which means they'll get some random upset on someone they're not supposed to. Derek Carr's going to show back up. He always shows back up.
The thing is, Derek Carr still had a great game.
He did, 25 for 39, 252, 2 TDs there.
Just the defense decided to go to sleep on him.
Yeah, but that concludes the NFL coverage because we got college football up next. And what better way to bring in college football than to talk about the big story that came out earlier this morning. Brett McMurphy with the Action Network reporting that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State is officially done. It's a done deal that it'll be done when Oklahoma joins the SEC. Both ADs have now confirmed this. The Bedlam series is the latest rivalry destroyed by conference realignment, and this is what happens when you have realignment. Obviously, some rivalries get renewed. Some stay, some don't. We saw this happen with Kansas and Missouri. We saw this happen with Nebraska and nearly everybody they play. This is Texas and Texas A&M was another one. This is just the latest one to happen. But the thing I want to talk about more is, I guess, the reaction from both sides, comments that have been said. I know, Andrew, you were playing what Mike Gundy had to say earlier today. And he had some interesting words, I guess, about, this isn't our fault. We're just trapped in this thing. I don't know why we're getting into this. Brent Venables saying the same thing. I don't like losing rivalry games, but he didn't really know as much of the situation. But I guess it's funny because in true college rivalry fashion, both sides are blaming the other here. I mean, you wouldn't have it any other way in college football. That's what makes the sport great. If you're an Oklahoma State fan, you think OU caused this. If you're an Oklahoma fan, you think OSU caused this. Everyone has their own arguments here. So it's just a fun situation to look at. And then, of course, this news breaks out and OU says, hey, by the way, come get your Bedlam tickets here. Welcome to Norman.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the stuff Gundy said was right. I think we are pointing the fingers to the wrong. I don't think it's really necessary on any football program themselves, just because of, if you look at it, I mean, yeah, is it overall it's OU and Texas. They obviously planned to leave and they left. But in the grand scheme of things, you already have your out-of-conference schedules planned. I mean, we joke about it. I mean, I can't remember the year, but OSU is Alabama in like 10 years. We joked about it before. I forget who OU plays, but they have games scheduled. So it's not worth trying to – we already have those contracts made. They're all under contract, too, so you're going to have to break a bunch of contracts and everything. So it's not worth it in that standpoint. I mean, again, realignment's part of college football this day and age. I think a lot of people are overreacting. It is what it is. Again, football is just 10 times harder to get. I don't know if you guys saw, they're keeping the Bedlam Wrestling series. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. So when things kind of settle down and calm down, they're going to still try to find ways. So I don't know. I'm not as overreacting on a lot of different spots, but in the end, I mean, I think to Gundy's point on a lot of different stuff is, what is he supposed to do? He wasn't in those Big 12 and SEC meetings getting OU in Texas. He's not going to go through. I mean, really, in the end, it's I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think it's more on higher up than even those coaches who. I mean, I don't think the coaches are sitting there planning their schedules. I think they're the ones finalizing it. But in the end, they're not going to go backtrack on a lot of different spots. Especially, I mean, we talk about the early in the season games you're already paying teams and. Let's face it, some of those teams you're paying is saving some of those programs, and that's just the reality of the situation, and that's where it's going to come down to. So I think here again, I'm staying neutral with it. I don't really think it's on both sides in the end. But if you had to pick one, yeah, I lean OU and Texas because they were the ones that negotiated the SEC.
Well, and it's like how I would look at it is that pretty much football is the only sport that's not going to have really any bedlam unless they meet in the postseason. Otherwise, you're never going to really see this. They'll either meet in the playoff game or they'll get a maybe Sugar Bowl bid or whatever, something like that, where Big 12 and SEC will play each other. But basketball, they might do the occasional every so often play each other. Since they have the Big 12 SEC challenge, they'll probably play each other so they have that. Then you have baseball. That's never going to change. They always play each other. They always have the one game in between, and they'll still have a series with them. Wrestling, like you said, that's not going anywhere because really for OSU, they're trying to go up against as many people as possible, and they don't want to lose a prestigious a good wrestling program that OU has. Obviously, it's not as great as Oklahoma State's, but OU still competes. So it's and are also ranked. So that's one thing. You just don't lose. Softball, they might still play each other. Who knows? But it's like football is the main sport that will never have Bedlam unless they meet in the postseason. Yeah, that's just how it's going to be.
Which I think is, it's sad when you lose a rivalry. It always is. But to me, of course, being an Oklahoma fan, I see it as we moved to the SEC. We asked Oklahoma State if they want to continue the series. They said no. There we go. Okay. They don't want to keep it going. That's on them.
I really don't think OU was going to want to have it going anyways. They probably just said it just to say it.
To me, I would love to keep it going. I would not mind putting it in that Thanksgiving week slot. You add Texas and A&M back. You have Arkansas, LSU. You have Florida, Florida State. You've set all these great rivalries that happen during Thanksgiving week. To me, it's like I wish we'd keep it going, but if Oklahoma State said no and Oklahoma said, hey, we've tried to reach out, that's at least what Joe Castiglione has said, then that's just where we are right now.
Again, I think in 5 years, you might bring the game back.
Yeah.
I think it just has to do with what's already planned, what's already scheduled. You can't back away from all that right now. It's just too quick to do it. And like you said, I think that is something you can integrate is down in that Thanksgiving week. You can, especially rivalry week if you think about it. There's plenty of teams that aren't playing conference games at that point in rivalry week, so you can bring this game back. And I think it is potentially going to come back. But I just think for right now, it's just not possible.
Yeah, you got Tyler here saying, I understand the immediate couple years by the move Bedlam won't be possible football-wise, but you can't tell me by 2030 things can't be worked out. If these teams are playing each other by 2030, I blame Oklahoma State for still being petty. Oklahoma has shown willingness to schedule. So, yeah, that's kind of where I am with it.
Willingness, I don't believe it.
I do. Joe C. has said, he's kind of one of those, we'll play anybody, anytime, anywhere. That's just who we are. We'll do whatever we want to do.
I'd say give it about 5 years. They'll do probably an occasional, like every other year, or do it home and home, and then off, home and home, and off.
Yeah,
it just, the thing is for OSU, they feel like it's too early too much in the wound for them to really want to do it again, since feels like an act of betrayal, especially that's how the Big 12 looks at it.
Which I find funny because OU's been trying to get out of the conference for a decade and has tried to drag other people with them. They've tried to get OSU to come along.
OSU was more than willing to come along, but the thing is that this was just like SC was only going to take 2 teams, and it was OU and Texas.
Yeah, well, I'm talking like the Pac-16 idea they had back in 2010.
That whole thing just fell apart. It was not really one single person's fault. It was a collection of just not coming to a deal.
Yeah, it was just a interesting time in football history.
Because it's more just like the deals probably for all 14 the 4 teams that were wanting to come along just didn't work out.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily, OSU didn't want that. It's like, it's everyone, they didn't get the deal they wanted.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the future. All I could say is, boy, these Bedlam games are going to be fun while we still have them. If you don't think
this year,
both sides are going to be riled up about this year, especially now, it's going to be a war.
Hell, they're going to try. Well, I can tell you this, OSU, you're going to try to make this one as memorable as possible, even if it's the last one.
If it's
the last one, it's like, it's probably going to see something happen.
The last one's going to have something happen. You've got to have fireworks with it. But moving on,
maybe a fight or two.
Maybe. I will be ready for it. That's all I'll say. As someone who is one to see how that game turns out, I will be excited. But moving into college football recap time, Georgia takes care of business. What a surprise. Georgia is doing Georgia stuff. Tyler here saying that there's no backstabbing or betrayal going on. Conference realignments, every man for themselves. If the SEC didn't want OSU, that ain't OU's fault. OSU would have made the same move had the situation been flipped. I agree. That's just how the business works at this point. But there's nothing you can do now. The move has been made. That's all I can say about that. I agree. But Georgia, 48-7 over South Carolina. South Carolina got that late touchdown to avoid the shutout. But Georgia does what Georgia does at this point. They have become the second monster in the SEC to compete with Alabama.
Yeah,
I think overall they're better than Alabama, the way they've played.
So far, yeah, I would agree. I would agree that Georgia is, I mean, they're number one for a reason. They're the best team in the country right now. This feels pretty much like last year. This is what Georgia's going to do. They're going to roll, and if they don't, they're probably playing a top 5 team.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the next one here, Oklahoma goes up to Lincoln and does what OU fans have been wanting to see for a long time happen. They got their blowout win. We get to celebrate 49-14. Oklahoma looks fantastic outside of literally one drive the entire first half. My goodness, I cannot say how happy I am to have a second half where I could take a nap and miss absolutely nothing. This is one of the most beautiful things I've seen in a while. OU's up 35-7 at halftime. The run game was working. Eric Gray, 11 carries, 113 yards, 2 TDs. He's averaging 7 yards a carry right now, which is what OU fans want to see. We want to see people run the ball, and we want to play good defense. We've done both so far. Oklahoma is doing everything they need to do. And when they've got Kansas State coming to town, and, I mean, for T. Kennedy 60, is this OU and OSU? I believe this one will be the last one in Norman. Next one will probably be the last one in Stillwater. From what I've speculated, it'll probably be 2024 will be the last year.
Yeah, I think that will
we'll have one hybrid conference year, which will be weird. But other than that, that's where we are.
They'll figure out the scheduling from there. I think more than likely OU probably will still end up playing all the teams that they typically play.
Yeah, so the SEC actually does their schedule reveal tonight, so we'll see. Unless something amazing happened that we're missing right now. I mean, I would expect it to be the normal schedule reveal. But other words, Oklahoma takes care of business 49-14 here over Nebraska.
They changed the momentum quick in this game after that first drive. Like you said, both ways. The first offensive drive wasn't good, and then the first defensive drive was not good either. But obviously they turned it pretty quick there and got the job done. And I think, like you said, it's all OU fans wanted was one blowout, and they got it there, especially in Nebraska.
I will say that obviously OU's first drive not that great. The second drive actually wasn't looking very good, and then Dylan Gabriel obviously broke that big run, immediately flipped all kinds of momentum toward OU, and Nebraska, their defense just had no answer for OU's offense, and Nebraska just forgot Thompson just was befuddled, didn't know what to do. Half the time he was getting sacked a lot, or a lot of things just were not going the way Nebraska was hoping for, at least trying to be competitive, but OU was just much better, did what they probably should have done last year and beat up Nebraska.
Yeah,
That's just how I look at it.
They did exactly what they were supposed to.
Should have been 2 years in a row of blowouts, but obviously there was weird conflictions last year, even though you could say Nebraska was better last year.
Yeah, Nebraska had a better defense last year. They already fired their defensive coordinator after this game.
Yeah,
so that's 2 out of 3 gone now. You've lost Frost. You've lost your defensive coordinator. Things are not going well for the Huskies. They're 1-3.
And they haven't been relevant since their first 2 years in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Or at least remotely relevant.
Yeah, when Bo Pelini was there. My goodness, what a time. And the next one here, USC rolling over Fresno State 45-17. Obviously, Jake Haener getting injured in this game for the Bulldogs. But the Trojan defense is looking good. They're forcing turnovers, doing what they're supposed to do. And that offense is humming right along. Caleb Williams, 25 for 37, 284 and 2 TDs.
I know USC hasn't necessarily played a overall tough team yet, but it's kind of weird that nice homer right there. But it was like USC overall, it's weird how Lincoln Riley, he goes at OU, his defense is not really that overall great throughout his time there. I mean, I'm not saying they were terrible last year. They actually were one of the best in the conference, but they still struggled quite a bit. And now it's like they look legit. So
yeah, I mean,
that OU defense still has
speed defense, baby.
That OU defense has their problems, but they've made the adjustment to not play soft. That's really all it was. It wasn't really anything else they did. They just quit playing soft, and that made a huge difference in that game.
Yeah, so they just added some pressure, and Casey Thompson looked like a quarterback that had no weapons to go to.
He really didn't.
Because, I mean, he really doesn't. But you look at it, I thought USC did what you're supposed to do in this game. You took care of business against a team that you should beat. So
No, without question.
good to see there for the Trojans.
I will say one thing that hasn't changed is all those yards
Yeah, no.
that they gave up.
Yeah, they still give up a lot of yards, but their red zone defense has tightened up.
Yeah.
And then Arkansas, Pine Bluff, coming to Stillwater, and they got themselves into, well, what they paid a lot of money to come to. They got beat 63-7. Oklahoma State takes care of business. Starters were out by the second quarter. So
Yeah, it was like halfway through the second quarter. They pretty much took all the starters out and kind of just let those backups do what they're supposed to. You had some true freshman play. Also, Gunnar Gundy, despite throwing an interception earlier, he still overall played pretty good for being the second string. And Sanders just looking good for the most part. Only threw the ball 16 times.
yeah,
So, and got 4 TDs, almost 250 yards. It's really all you need from him, especially against a team like Arkansas Pine Bluff.
yeah. So this is a team you're supposed to blow out. You paid a lot. You pay $1 million nearly to beat somebody up, and you take care of business there with a 63-7 win.
No, without question. They finally did what they were supposed to do. Obviously struggled the first 2 weeks, and they're able to get the job done here. And, I mean, again, not much to take away, though, against Pine Bluff. So we'll see how they open up conference.
I'd say, obviously, from week 1 to now, they've overall have played better overall. I will say Sanders kind of slightly took a step back last week, but the defense for OSU played solid against Arizona State for the most part of the game, especially that second half. They played a lot better.
Yeah.
And then what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to come out better in the second half. Even if you don't start as well, you can come out and with the bang, and OSU did what they're supposed to do against Pine Bluff, blow them out.
That's the Spencer Sanders experience. One day he's good, one day he isn't.
Well,
the next day he's good, the next day he isn't.
I would say
it's back and forth.
Well, I'd say last week it wasn't like, when I say step back, it wasn't like, oh, it was horrible. It was just like he didn't have like the video game stats like he had against Central Michigan.
Yeah.
He still played he played really good in the second half. It's just say that first half he was a bit slow, and the whole team was, but at the second half they turned on the Jets and beat Arizona State, and this week they carried that momentum to beating the crap out of Pine Bluff.
Yeah.
That's really all we can say about it.
Yeah. Moving on to the next one. The Bobby Petrino Bowl featured a legendary moment. Never forget, Missouri State had 17-0 lead in this game. Just what a half the Bears had there. You're up 17-0. Arkansas comes back. It's 17-14. Missouri State doesn't give up. They ride a 10-point lead into the fourth quarter, and it took everything for Arkansas to come back. Punt returns, KJ Jefferson making big plays, and Arkansas gets a 38-27 win in a crazy game. But if you're an Arkansas fan, it leaves you with a lot of concerns.
Yeah, especially you were playing great out with the first 2 games, and all of a sudden this one, oh boy, that cannot. For Arkansas got their scare, and they need to realize that can never happen again.
Yeah, if you told me Missouri State was going to score more points on Arkansas than Cincinnati, I probably wouldn't have believed you, but here we are. This is just the world we live in.
I will say that might also mean Missouri State's also probably much better in the FCS than they were last year.
Yeah, I would say Bobby Petrino, not a nice human being, but a good coach.
He's a good
That's
coach.
about
just
all you
not
can
a good
say.
human being.
Yeah, that's the best way to put that there. But Arkansas does find a way to win by double digits. Michigan State
The biggest surprise for
takes a trip to the West Coast. And, I mean, Andrew, we talked about this on the show. We knew something was up because Washington was a 3.5-point favorite before this game. This is one of those, okay, Vegas clearly knows something that no one else did. And they figured out that Washington seems to be a pretty darn good team. Michael Penix Jr., 24 for 40, 397, 4 TDs. Huskies have the defense and the offense, it looks like, to compete in the Pac-12.
Well, I'd say Penix, after Indiana, found his footing in Washington.
Yeah, he seems to have found it.
I can't really say much about that besides it was a butt whooping. I mean, Washington came in ready to play, and Michigan State kind of just didn't really do anything for a lot of the game, and Washington made sure Michigan State didn't have a chance to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, this was another classic tale of Michigan State's defense did not show up for the game. Washington's offense did. This is what happens every single time for Michigan State. Some of these big games, their defense gets exposed, and they've got some big problems. Yeah, Penix is healthy, and that's dangerous, is what Tyler writes in.
Yeah, that's true.
And I would agree.
I know they ended up giving 28 points, but a lot of that was just back end of the game,
Yeah,
kind
it
of
was.
garbage time. So I got to give a shout out to Washington's defense here. They really helped this team. I get the obviously offense put up the points, but the defense really got them going here early on in the game, got them the ball and everything, and then gave them a chance to open up that lead. They have the early safety. So, no, I think as good as the Washington offense was, credit to that defense really opening up this game for them.
Yep. Just absolutely fun to see what they did there. And now the other real surprise of the day, Oregon obliterates BYU. And I mean, this is something I didn't expect. If you had Bo Nix running for 3 TDs on your card, congratulations, you might want to go play the lottery real quick, because this is the first time he's ever done that, and it was all Oregon. They're up 38-7 at one point in this game, and the Ducks get a 41-20 win, which just, once again, going back to Georgia, how good is Georgia then? Because they beat this team 49-3.
Yeah, they needed this win pretty bad. Obviously, you get beat up by Georgia, everyone's laughing at you and asking, like, how good really are you? And then, obviously, BYU coming off a big win against Baylor. Oregon comes out and dominates this game. So this was big for Oregon. They really needed this game. And, again, just credit to the start. I mean, that's what it comes down to. These teams getting off to a big start and then not backing away from it. So a lot of credit here to Oregon.
Yeah, pretty much. Just Oregon pretty much took control, pretty much prevented BYU from really doing anything. They kind of exposed BYU's defense quite a bit. Really not much of anything else. And Bo Nix had that one game, some of those games that he's had at Auburn, he just balls out and plays how he's capable of playing.
Yeah, Tyler writing here, Bo Nix had his yearly, this guy's a pretty good game. He might throw 2
Probably
picks
will.
this week.
But
That's just what Bo Nix does.
I will say one thing I did. It was mainly from the student section, but apparently Oregon student section was saying F the Mormons.
Yeah, they said that, and then, of course, you have the apologies and all that, which I don't understand, because you have Mormon players on your team. You have, from what I saw, it wasn't, thankfully, all of the student section, but
it was just a
little pocket of them.
And thing is that makes that even worse on that those people that said that was that BYU came out with a flag to honor one of the Oregon players.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just an absolutely weird time there in Eugene, but when is it not?
That's true.
That's life of Autzen Stadium right there. But looking at some of these other ones, Miami playing Texas A&M, big game for both teams. If you're Miami, you need to have a statement win. If you're Texas A&M, you need to prove that this is not the same team that lost to App State. And the Aggies' defense was able to hold on. Max Johnson comes in at QB for Texas A&M. You could not really tell there was a difference at quarterback. Johnson,
really
10 for 20, 140 and a TD. Offense looked exactly the same, but the defense steps up. Also, Mario Cristobal decided he wanted to kick some red zone field goals, and all of that culminates in a 17-9 Aggie win.
I think this game mainly shows that A&M's defense is legit. The problem is that A&M has no QB. That's really their major problem. Is that the team is good almost everywhere else except for their QB. And it's just amazing how they haven't found a QB that actually is good. It's like, because you have, like, the kids that they've recruited, you think that would entice a good blue chip or even a 4-star quarterback to come in and that actually plays and actually do it. But they still haven't found it. And Miami just kind of couldn't do anything with their offense. They just could not get in the end zone.
Yeah, it was one of those weird games. You look at the stats, you think Miami won. I mean, the offense was able to drive the ball a couple times and everything. You look at 27-16 first downs. But credit to A&M's defense. They found ways to get off the field in the end without giving up a lot of points, something they weren't able to do against Appalachian State. We talked about last week. Appalachian State was able to keep drives going with first downs, take the time possession down, and kill the clock that way. But A&M found a way to get the job done. And I was surprised they were. I thought Miami would win this game.
Yeah, I think we both picked Miami to win this one, but
I think.
That's what happens.
Yeah, I probably would have picked Miami. Yeah, I know I wasn't here for that because I was busy. I think I was at the radio station when that happened.
You were busy trying to do jobs or something. Quit trying to have a life on us, Connor. This is what we do. We sit in the pit here and only record shows. But NC State getting a big win over Texas Tech. They beat an undefeated team. We said look out for it. NC State's a 10.5-point favorite in this one. And they did what they had to do. You forced 4 turnovers. You didn't have to win it with offense. You can win it with defense. That's weird saying that for NC State. With how they've been the past few years. They were a shootout team. Now they got Devin Leary and that great defense to back him up. 27-14, like I said, big win for NC State, showing that, hey, we can win against Power 5 teams.
Absolutely. Jumping out big against the Big 12 team, obviously, shutting out Texas Tech in the first quarter. Not something you see a whole lot, is shutting down a Big 12 team like that. Obviously, the conference known for a lot of offense, but you jump out to a 20-0 lead and you don't look back from it. Credit to NC State offensively and defensively. And, again, we talked about it. They could have been a team to sneak into the top 10 in this week's rankings, but they just missed that on the outside.
I will say, if you probably take away some of the major mistakes by Tech, they probably make this game a lot closer. I don't think they win the game, but definitely they could have their shot to win it. NC State played a great game. Defense did what they're supposed to do. That offense needs to pick it up a bit more, especially with some of the teams in the ACC that will kill you with offensive firepower. So, but great win by NC State, showing that, hey, we can win against Power 5 school.
Yep, and then we have to talk about Florida. What are you guys doing down there in Gainesville? You beat Utah. You then lose by double digits to Kentucky. And then they get in a dogfight with South Florida. Like, my goodness, Anthony Richardson, 10 for 15, 112, and 2 picks. That hype's gone. Gary Bohannon, remember him? He was at Baylor. He did about the same thing. 12 for 28, 116, 2 picks. This was a game where South Florida had a lot of costly mistakes in the fourth quarter that prevented them from winning this thing. You missed a field goal to send it to OT. You had a fumble inside your own 30 that gave Florida the go-ahead touchdown. You had so many things go against you, and they still almost won this game.
Really a game I didn't get to watch this one, but I was hoping South Florida would pull out that victory, especially just the way Florida was not playing that great. I mean, South Florida at one was actually winning the game, and then just they let it get away from them, and then just missed that field goal. And I think if they make that field goal, they probably beat Florida.
I mean, there's a good shot. They would have taken it to overtime. It would have been a battle.
I mean, who would have thought this is the same Florida team that beat Utah? I mean, what happened? Like, what happened between that first week through the Kentucky to now?
It was probably one of those, and I mean, you see this all the time with certain programs where their entire offseason, they're not preparing for the entire offseason of every single team they're going to play. Okay, we're gunning to beat Utah. That's our big game, beat Utah. And then they win that game. Well, now they got the rest. They got 11 other teams they got to play now.
Because they turned around and lost in the swamp to Kentucky. And that was supposed to be a revenge game for Florida, especially losing at Lexington. And mainly a lot of magic happened for Kentucky to win last year. Kentucky looked a much better team this year and Florida just really took a step back on that. Then obviously this game kind of really shows that Florida doesn't even look like a top 25 team. The only reason why they're in the top 25 is because of that Utah win. Otherwise, they would not be there.
Yeah.
Because Utah has looked much better afterwards.
Yeah, see, that's the wild card, though. When you beat one of those big teams that were still early in the year trying to figure everybody out, we have no idea how good Florida is or how bad they are. They're a different team every single week. And the next one here, Liberty and Wake Forest, a shootout till the end. 37-36. Liberty goes for 2 for the win, but could not get it, giving Wake that 37-36 win to hold on over the Flames.
Yeah, another game where the losing team is able to outgain them yardage-wise, but I always wonder, like, if this is an ACC game, that team's not going for 2, you wonder how it shakes out in the end in overtime. I mean, it's kind of, again, Liberty's got nothing to lose at that point there. They got to this point, and you go for the win there, obviously. But, no, credit to Liberty. Find a way to battle, but in the end, Wake does what they have to do, and that's just win the game. And now they get their big test this upcoming week, and then they can make their statement.
Next week's going to be where they have to turn on the Jets. They want to compete for the ACC championship.
Yeah, so they're going to get their first big test taken on Clemson. And then Texas, I mean, the first half of this one against UTSA, thinking, will they? Could they? 17-17. Could it happen, folks? And then Bijan Robinson breaks a 78-yard touchdown run, and then Jahdae Barron a 44-yard pick six, and that put this thing away. 31-20 Horns led. and 41-20, Horns win. So we got to talk about, we'll talk about it, of course, more on Thursday, but they've got to go to a sold-out Lubbock. First sellout Texas Tech's had in 4 years. They're getting ready for a top 25 Texas team. And with Hudson Card in, he was able to, salvage what could have been a disaster. There were rumors that maybe a third-string quarterback was going to play for Texas. But Hudson Card comes in there, 15 for 23, 161 at TD, leads Texas to a comfortable win against a good group of 5 team.
Again, Texas did what they needed to do. Obviously, had a scary first half where you're tied with them going into the half, and then take care of business from start of the second half. That's what many would probably say Texas should have done that right early. I mean, they have the talent where they should have done it, but obviously offense getting a really slow start. I mean, you get no points in that first quarter, and then you get 17 to tie it. And UTSA, they're a solid team, just made mistakes in that second half that kept that game from being close. And Texas did what they're supposed to do, and it made them look good. And we'll see how they'll fare against Texas Tech in Lubbock.
Yep. And the next one will be the first of 4 non-top 25 games we talk about. The first one here, Marcus Freeman. He gets his first win as the head coach of the Fighting Irish. Drew Pine is able to salvage at least some part of the season so far, going 17 for 23, 152 TDs, as Notre Dame beats Cal 24-17. And this was a back-and-forth game. Cal had several chances to win. They got all the way down the field at the end of the game after a targeting penalty on what would be a Notre Dame interception. And, I mean, if you're Cal, if you're Plummer there, man, did he put up a valiant effort, I guess is the best way to put it. But solid win for Notre Dame. You finally got your first one in the win column.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like Texas. When you have a backup quarterback, you just got to find a way to win. That's what they're able to do. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be pretty, but just get the win. And Notre Dame was able to do that with a solid offensive and defensive performance.
I just kind of noticed we don't have Appalachian State or Troy game on there.
No, we don't have that one. It was a big game with that Hail Mary and everything, but other than that, I mean,
game was really good.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to App State, but it's on ESPN Plus, so I did not watch as much of it as I would like to, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, I watched the game when someone posted it on YouTube. I went and watched that because my ESPN Plus is no longer
This
working.
is the game I was looking at, though. Tulane and K-State. The Green Wave have done it. They're 3-0. They haven't been 3-0 since 1998. 17-10. Tulane said, hey, we got Michael Pratt. We're going to come out here and out-physical you. Yeah, he might go 13 for 26. Watch this defense, though.
I was about to say, like, the defenses for both teams actually played pretty good. But offense for K-State, it feels like they overlooked Tulane because you beat the living heck out of Missouri. I understand Missouri's not a good team at all, but it's like you go from that to you're playing Tulane. Not saying Tulane's a bad team by any means. They're a solid unit of a team. I mean, they almost beat OU last year. Keyword almost. But it feels like K-State overlooked them and was looking toward the Oklahoma game rather than actually playing Tulane. That's what me and my dad talked about. We're like, this is not the offensively, that's not the same K-State team, but Tulane played a great defensive game and did what they're supposed to do to get the win. That's really all I can say about that.
Yeah, I mean, this was, if you're K-State, a lot of things happened in this one. Number one, Deuce Vaughn got absolutely shut down at times. He had 20 carries for 81 yards, but there were moments where he was going nowhere fast. And, I mean, when you have those types of moments, you got to think about it. Yes, it was Tulane, but when you lose to Tulane, man, you got to look at going to OU now next week. They got all this tape on how to beat you. This is exactly what you didn't want to happen if you're K-State. This is brutal, I think, is the best way to put it.
I think even like this game, if K-State would have won this game, it would have been close. I know you're still going to take the mistakes that K-State made and still probably use it. It doesn't matter whether they win or lose. This doesn't look good for K-State.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian Martinez, he had some bad misses. Yes, he went 21 for 31, but this is just absolutely, I wouldn't say panic button time yet.
No.
K-State,
it's not panic time yet. But
the bells are about to ring.
You just got to bounce back this week and make it close.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's you just got to play good against OU. That's really the thing you got to hope for at this point.
Yeah, that's what you got to hope for there if you're the Wildcats. And then, speaking of the other team in the state of Kansas right now, Jayhawks are 3-0. For the first time since 2009. We got to talk about one of the best offenses no one has seen, because I don't think anyone saw their first game against Tennessee Tech. That was on ESPN Plus. No one saw that West Virginia game. It was also on. This is their national TV debut this season. And my goodness, Jalen Daniels, 14 for 23, 158, 3 TDs, 12 carries for 123, and 2 more TDs. So this is a special Kansas team, man. Yeah, they got Duke at home this week, then Iowa State and TCU. They could be 6-0. They could be 6-0.
We joked about their over/under before the year at 2.5, I think it was, and here they already got it.
Jason Daniels for Heisman.
Yeah, there you go. Jaden Daniels for Heisman. There you go. What a guy. Kansas is 3-0. They deserve at least something for that. I don't know what you get, but 48-30, Houston players fighting on the sidelines. This game had everything.
I remember saying this when we were doing our breakdown before the season. You guys kind of looked at me like I was crazy when I thought they could at least get 5-6 wins, and obviously making jokes about the team would be Texas and all that. It was like I thought Kansas had a pretty easier schedule for their first at least the first 6 games, where they could at least get 5 wins out of that. Maybe drop one either to Iowa State or TCU, but it's like I think they obviously play Duke this next week, and that might be they played a tougher team in Houston, so I think you see Kansas going 4-0.
I mean, it very well could happen. It'll be fun to see what Kansas does this year. I mean, it's the storyline no one ever thought we would see. I mean, we got Vandy going 3-1 to start. We've got Duke being undefeated. That hasn't happened in a while. We have a lot of crazy storylines to get this season started from teams you would not expect it from.
And congrats and good job on head coach for Kansas. He's done a great job actually doing properly rebuilding this team. He obviously had to take over from Les Miles, but he's done a great job.
Yeah, I mean, Lance Leipold, what he's been able to do at Kansas has been just absolutely amazing, which is why he's now one of the top 3 candidates for the Nebraska job. Yeah. Oh, boy.
Yeah, well, enjoy the season while you can, Kansas.
Yeah, I'll say we'll see what Nebraska does, obviously. But the final game to talk about also involves some hirings and firings, as Arizona State loses to Eastern Michigan 30-21, and Herman Edwards is fired shortly after that game. Just what a crazy turn of events. This is the first time, I believe they said, Eastern Michigan has beaten a Pac-12 team in the regular season or something along those lines. It has been a crazy turnaround from what Arizona State had. Just a few years ago, they looked like a promising up-and-coming team, and now here they are, riddled with sanctions, losing to Eastern Michigan.
I was like, sanctions will do that to you, and also losing key players that were there for you for those few years, and it was just a matter of time for Edwards was going to get fired. Whether it be this week or within the next couple of weeks, his days were numbered, and Eastern Michigan made the administration pull the plug, and I feel like for Arizona State they really needed it.
Yeah, with how quick it happened, you knew they were talking about it for a while, and this is the final straw, especially with the way it went down, going down big early.
Yeah, I mean, it was just absolutely I mean, it was funny to see this game because this is like one of the last games on TV. But, man, this was crazy. You want to talk about something really crazy, though. We're not going to go way too much in depth because I highly doubt you were awake to see the ending of this game. We're going to talk about a little Nevada-Iowa game that had 3 rain delays. Did not get over till 2 in the morning Central Time. They started letting anyone in the stadium. Someone with a dog got in the stadium. Someone had a giant bag of popcorn that they were hugging that they found on national TV. And they kind of had to find people. There were maybe 50, 60 people in the stands to see the end of that game. And Iowa getting the 27-0 win well into Sunday morning. This was one of the funniest games I've seen, as both teams just clearly wanted to go home. Yeah. No one wanted to be there.
I wouldn't want to be there. It's like reminds me of the OSU Tulsa game in 2011 where they were up until like 3, 4 in the morning just trying to finish a game that was halfway through.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, then some of these other kind of quick highlights to look at here. You got UAB beats Georgia Southern 35-21. That surely can't be good for Nebraska fans. He lost to Georgia Southern last week. Virginia Old Dominion. Virginia getting a 16-14 win there. Fun storyline. Well, not fun storyline there, as Old Dominion's little dog that travels with him retrieves kickoffs and things like that was originally denied entry to Virginia because they didn't want to do it. And then for the sake of PR, because everyone was ratioing them on Twitter, they had to let the dog in the stadium.
Yay.
And so that was a good moment there, but Old Dominion still got beat. So
yeah, it's like Old Dominion just came so close, but not close enough.
Yeah, and then Northwestern getting beat by Southern Illinois, 31-24 there. Northwestern is right back on the wrong track. And then look at some of these others here. Indiana survives Western Kentucky in overtime, 33-30. And Syracuse wins in an absolute chaotic game over Purdue, 32-29. That game made absolutely no sense, but it was hilarious to watch.
When is a Purdue game not entertaining to watch?
I mean, every Purdue game nearly is entertaining, but that one was a special kind of entertaining. Like, we had kickoffs from the 10 entertaining. You score a touchdown and then get two unsportsmanlikes back to back, and then you lose the game because of it. Which is what a time. But are there any other games that happened this week we've covered that, or haven't covered, I guess, to talk about here?
Well, I know I said Appalachian State and Troy, but we don't need to cover that.
Yeah,
I just found the game entertaining because Troy had their shot to win that game, and Appalachian State managed to win it on a miracle Hail Mary with 2 seconds.
Yeah, and then the last one I want to talk about, South Alabama has a lead on UCLA almost the entire game until, well, the final second when UCLA gets a walk-off field goal to win 32-31.
And there was no one to watch it.
There was a whole, 30 people there. I don't understand those people. How do you not watch college football? Explain, Californians.
Well, people in LA just don't care as much. It's like if it's not the Trojans, they don't really care.
Yeah. What else are you going to do? There's no other sports going on except the Dodgers.
It's like the only time.
I know you aren't watching the Angels.
Because it's like the only time they really care about UCLA is basketball. Otherwise, they're not. Despite the fact UCLA is still having, in regards to where they're at now, they're playing better football than they have in the last few years.
Yeah.
So it's like you think that they would actually get people in the stands. Instead, they're all congregating on one side of the field.
No, that's just what happens out there.
And also, you're playing in the Rose Bowl, which not necessarily the best stadium to be playing in.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, it needs to be updated or needs to be better taken care of.
But that will do it for tonight's show then. As always, we thank you for tuning in. It has been a wonderful time once again. For Connor Gray and Andrew Santangelo, I'm Cade Kennedy. If you enjoyed what you heard this evening, well, feel free to follow us here on twitch.tv/NWTV7. Subscribe to our channel, The Guys Who Stare at Stats. Like this video. Comment down below if you have any agreements, disagreements with what we said on the show tonight. And as always, feel free to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at NWTV7 to get updates on when we go live. We should be back this Thursday at 5:30 unless something crazy happens. If not, just let us know time-wise. I mean, things change around here so often with our schedules. But other than that, we will see you all next time, and have a good one, everybody.